Vocal toning has been a very interesting process. I was going through this thing of integration with my father had come to me after he had passed in 2013, but he had come to me talking about wanting to make amends for abusing the power that was given to him to battle the church about their dogmatic belief in hell, and he used that power to injure his family. So he had come to me with an understanding that he wanted to heal some of that. And in my integration process, I've been trying to pull in all these little pieces of me that I had left behind. Well, when they arrived, they came with a flood of emotions, and I had trying to connect with the feelings of all these parts of me that had come back. And I was kind of like trying to hold it down because it was so much emotion. I began this vocal toning process and hoping to get all the vibrations of each of these little pieces that were kind of discordant. So I was trying to see if I can get them to align and become harmonious, right? So I began the toning process hoping to heal some of that. But before I actually went to the first group toning, I could feel this rising emotional state, and it scared the crap out of me. And I began to see it as a buildup of pressure. So I was talking to my wonderful friend Erin, and she said that it was like a volcanic crust over the top of it. I went, oh my God, okay, that makes sense. So if the lava is rising in a volcano, then the crust begins to form. If the crust is there, that's the resistance I was feeling to this emotional state. That crust is there, and if you don't relax and remove that crust and let it go of resistance, you have two choices. It could be a volcanic explosion like Mount St. Helens, where it destroyed half the mountain and the whole surrounding side of Washington, just totally took it out by leaving that pressure on it. It built up that pressure. But then you could look at it, the second way of looking at the volcano is like Mount Kilauea, right? So even though the lava comes up, it flows over, it destroys whatever it's in its way. It's a very painful process before it gets to the ocean. But Mount Kilauea is building the island, not destroying the mountain. So I could look at it that way. So I began to try and stop resisting this emotional flood that was happening, and I could feel the pain and the anger and everything rise up to my heart chakra from my base chakra. And I could feel it just cauterizing and burning all the way up as it flowed over the top. I just allowed the pain and cried, and oh, it was just very painful process. Well, I went to the first group vocal toning workshop, and I began to learn about that, the healing through sound and breath work. So I went in, and it was a great process, and I enjoyed learning the basics of it, right? Then yesterday I went in for a one-on-one with Rachel, who was the one that's teaching the workshop, and I was telling her some of the story about integration, my father's desire to make amends for everything, and I began healing some of the toning. It was beautiful work. I started in my heart chakra, and then it went to move down into my lower chakras, and it skipped the third chakra altogether. I went, wait a minute. No, do not skip this process, because I want to sit in that feeling. And Rachel was talking about how the third chakra is about will and protection, Mars and masculinity and power. And I was skipping that part because in my childhood, it was required of me to put aside my power, to not protect myself. So I pulled that healing into the third chakra and sat there with it. Do not resist. Do not create that crust of the volcanic action, right? And I went into that third, and I breathed the expansion of awe into that third chakra. beautifully, the energy of that, I could feel it as I was toning, the waver in my voice and the cracking in my voice as I was singing into that third chakra. And I felt it just relax, and it sunk into the sacral chakra. I mean, the tone changed. It was really cool. So the sacral chakra is where all of damage done by male energy, and not toxic male energy in my life, right? The sexual assault, molestation, the anger for my father. He never did anything sexual, but he was very prominent in the damage to my sacral chakra, which is about expression of emotions, and he would not allow that. We were either happy or we were numb. There was no other emotions available to us. So I went into that space and I began to cry. And I was trying to tell Rachel about the experience of why I was crying, but it just made me cry more. But it was okay, because if the tears were cleansing, right? And she goes, you're in a safe space. Go ahead and cry. I'll probably cry with you. It was very sweet. And so I went into that space and I began to vocal the into that energy. And it was hard, but it was beautiful. And I could hear the waver in the tone. And as I allowed that energy of healing and expansion into that sacral chakra, I began to notice a relaxing energy, which is kind of odd for that space for me, very feminine power, which was tamped down, began to open and relax. And as I did that, the tone actually changed again. And I felt it start to drop into the base chakra, and I stopped. Turned to Rachel and I said, I am scared to go in there. That is where all the anger lives. How could you do this to a child? How could you do this to anybody, a human being? How could you treat another human being without any feeling or regard for that person? It was very angry. That is a dangerous emotion, especially with a rageaholic like my dad. Any kind of confrontation with him, and I sat there and watched him do it to my sister Marcy. Marcy would get up in his face and be angry back and be righteously indignant at being treated that way, and he met her with serious violence. And I just tamped that emotion down out of fear. Even though he didn't direct it at me, I watched him direct it at her. I had to tamp down that emotional state, so if I was angry at all, I knew that was dangerous. So I didn't want to go into that base chakra angry. And again, she encouraged me to go ahead and be afraid. Walk into that fear. Like my mom used to say about pain, you walk into the pain, right? Walk into the fear and face it anyway. Do it anyway. Be brave. And I went, okay, all right. I walked into the fear and I allowed that emotional state, right? And I began to breathe the awe into the base chakra. And it was rising up in me, and it took a few rounds of toning to get it to open, but it did, and I felt the container of my base chakra fill, and I relaxed into that chakra, and as it opened, I could feel all of it just flowing into and filling up the container that is the base chakra. And I said, I think I want to change the tone. And she recommended, how about O, which is the divine masculine sound. And I went, okay, that makes sense. So if we're going to pull in divine masculine, I don't want to pull in my dad's masculinity and try to fix him. That was not my point. Forget that. Walk away from my dad. What do I need from my divine masculine to find balance in my healing process through the chakras, right? I did that, and I did the O, and it was really funny because it started in my throat, the throat chakra, because when you're holding down your emotions, you feel like you cannot express who you are emotionally or words or anything. It's very dangerous to express yourself. So I started in the throat with the oh, and as it began to relax, it sank into my heart, and it brought healing and balance into the heart. Then I pulled it down into the will chakra, And that's about protection. I couldn't protect myself. I couldn't stop the abuse from happening. It would made me feel powerless. So I pulled that O into there, and it took a while and a few toning rounds to open up that masculine energy into it. Then I pulled it and it sank into the sacral chakra, and I began to cry again. And that was a hard one, as it took several rounds of toning to get that to smooth out. And then it sunk into the base chakra. And I remember thinking to myself, I need to pull this in. And when in the workshop, Rachel talks about how the not right? So the pulls whatever energy into where you're singing it into. So I began at the top of my crown chakra, and I began to pull in the masculine energy. And pulled it all the way through my body. It was a beautiful, healing experience. And when I woke up this morning, I wanted to continue this practice. One of the things that she told me before I left yesterday was, don't say the words, don't make the tone, don't do that. Whatever your intuition tells you you need at that moment, make that sound. So I did. I went into that tone and I started to feel the energy. And by the end of it, I was making wolf noises and bear noises and I was throat singing this into myself. And the more I got, pull out of myself into, oh, this is going to make a great video or whatever. No, I plugged my ears and went internally and felt it and stopped thinking of the outside and pulled it from the inside. And I was toning these deep tones, and it was beautiful energy. And then I laid back was doing some yoga stretching for, especially my sacral chakra, and my heart chakra was very tight. So I'm doing some stretches and things, and I could feel the energy still, and I was still toning when I was laying on my back, and it was coming up from the ground through my body and then back down through my body. It was a very healing experience. I'm part of this small sacred song group through Drums Manifest Truth, where Rachel and her partner James share their music and have a beautiful community with drum circles, meditation, and this vocal toning. Well, in that sacred song group, before I did the toning, I recorded the ending song. But after the toning, I went back and listened to that recording, and I could hear the stress in the tone of my voice. Then after the toning process, this morning, I re-recorded it. It's interesting to listen to the difference in my voice after toning. It was relaxed and more open and more authentically me. Funnily, I recorded like 3 of those songs, and every time I finished a song, I started laughing, which is very different for me. It felt so good to finish it, and then I started giggling. It was hilarious. Made myself giggle. I never wanted to share my music before. I mean, I did, but I never thought it possible. So this is a very interesting thing, that all the videos that I've already posted on my channel on YouTube and other social media, I'm thinking about re-recording them and then republishing them, because my voice is so different and the energy behind my voice is different. One thing I didn't realize until about a week or so after I started creating this painting was there was an irony of Rachel's choice of the Sanskrit symbol. It's breed. The irony lies in the fact that this piece is a trade for vocal toning, which is basically breath work. Well, I am very grateful that Rachel did this vocal toning workshop and worked with me one-on-one personally, because it changed how I express myself, how I bring my energy into the world.